What they just did moves us one step closer to the Great Reset. Last week, something monumental happened that pretty much no one paid attention to, unless, of course, you were one of the sniveling politicians who were in on the scheme. The scheme is all part of a bigger plan to take money away from the poor and the middle class and transfer that money to the wealthy. Politicians rarely say what they mean. They usually tell you about something else, trying to distract you. They hide what they're actually doing. But this time, they actually told us flat out, this is their plan. More on that in a second. Welcome to Redacted. I'm Clayton Morris. On this channel, we uncover those sniveling politicians, and we also focus on the billionaire cabal that is secretly running our government into the ground. But first, we need to go back to March of this year, just weeks after the start of the Ukraine war. The elites in Washington were quietly using the war as a cover-up to do all sorts of things to you, in the same way that they used the pandemic to take your power away. It was the perfect cover, right? Now Ukraine provided the next best cover. On March 15th, Pennsylvania Congressman Brian Fitzpatrick introduced a bill that already had bipartisan support before he even announced it. Of course it did, because it had to do with limiting Russian President Vladimir Putin's access to gold. Why would they do that? Why would they actually want to do that? Well, the politicians told us, of course, it was because they really cared about the Ukrainian people and wanted to stop Russian aggression by hitting him in the bank account. Here's what the congressman's press release actually said when he announced the bill. It said, quote, "As the leader of the free world, the U.S. cannot afford to inflict weakly enforced half measures when it comes to economic sanctions against Russia. We must continue to do everything in our power to fully isolate Putin and his cronies. Our bipartisan Stop the Russian Gold Act takes the crippling sanctions the U.S. has already imposed one step further by freezing Russia's gold reserves that are helping fund Putin's war machine." Boy, they think we're all stupid. The mainstream media parroted those claims breathlessly. It's to help the Ukrainian people. Really? No, it wasn't. Even President Biden just a few days ago was asked how long Americans would need to suffer thanks to high inflation. How much higher will it need to go? How much higher will gas prices need to go? Here's what he had to say.
The reason why gas prices are up is because of Russia. Russia, Russia, Russia.
How long is it fair to expect American drivers and drivers around the world to pay that premium for this war?
As long as it takes.
So you'll need to suffer for as long as it takes. Until what takes? They don't actually care about the Ukrainian people. They care about gold and they care about power. Congressman Fitzpatrick even hinted at this in his press release. I'm quoting now. Russia is currently one of the biggest sovereign gold owners in the world, with gold making up roughly 20% of the country's total reserves, he said. Since the international community began enforcing sanctions on Russia after the invasion of Ukraine, the Russian government has been buying more gold for the first time in 2 years as the value of the ruble crashes, he said. Well, in hindsight, this paragraph is incredibly telling. Because two things stand out to me. Number one, the U.S. government is terrified that Russia is buying as much gold as possible. And number two, the value of the ruble. In fact, the opposite happened, didn't it? The Russian ruble soared in value, hitting an all-time high against the U.S. dollar and against the euro. So this little gold scheme that Congress cooked up backfired. Congress's little plan was a total failure, and it actually hurt the United States intentionally. And that brings us to last week when the unthinkable happened. Brings us one step closer to the Great Reset. The G7, that's what brings us closer to the Great Reset. The G7 countries voted to ban the import of Russian gold. So let's understand what these people are doing. They stopped Russia from spending its own gold, and now the G7 countries are banning Russia from selling their own gold. Oh man, what a punishment. Just to be clear, the Russian ruble is mostly backed by gold. It's not on the gold standard technically, but it's the largest gold-backed currency in the world. The United States dollar is not backed by anything, not even backed by air, which air might even be worth something someday. And a massive amount of debt is what the United States dollar is backed by. It's not backed by gold, thanks to Nixon taking us off the gold standard in the early 1970s. So you punish Russia by strengthening their gold-backed currency. That's like punishing a child who ate too many cookies by giving them a slice of cake. It makes no sense on the surface. But when you understand that this is part of the Great Reset, it makes perfect sense. By limiting access to gold, they take away your power. Gold has been the standard for 4,000 years. It gives you power. It preserves family wealth. The Great Reset was voted on by the world's billionaires in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. It was voted on and implemented, by the way. As Senator Rand Paul pointed out, this isn't just a conspiracy theory.
So I'm dead set against this. And they used to call people who talked about one world government, they used to say, oh, it's a conspiracy. We would always say, no, it's in their mission statement. They say it at every meeting. That's what they're for.
Yes, they voted on it. They wrote it down. So what these thugs are doing is really consolidating, right? They're consolidating a global central bankers dictatorship. They're handing the biggest banks and financial institutions control over fiscal policy, meaning an unelected group of thugs get to spend your money how they see fit. They create money out of thin air, and it's all consolidation of power. It's no wonder they don't like Putin backing his currency by something tangible like gold. It terrifies them. And that's why this move by the G7 brings us one step closer to full implementation of the Great Reset. We should all be concerned. And that's why we've partnered with a mineral exploration company that is actively exploring for gold in a number of big projects inside North America to bring you this video. Nev Gold, they explore for gold in a couple of big areas. In fact, 3 big areas in both the United States and Canada to extract as much gold as they can. So the demand for gold could be heading towards this gold supercycle that we've been talking about, according to their research and also independent research pointing in the same direction. So what the team at Nev Gold told me is that because the U.S. inflation right now is hitting 40-year highs and above, the U.S. government continues to print U.S. dollars. We're heading towards this gold supercycle with prices of gold hitting $2,500 for an ounce of gold. Yes, $2,500 an ounce. So the team at Nev Gold told me that investors are flocking to the U.S. dollar right now against these other currencies, but that's only temporary, because the US dollar is heading towards a collapse. And we could see a depression bigger than the Great Depression. All the indicators are there, guys. The real story right now is gold, and it makes sense. Why would you want your family's money in a paper currency that isn't backed by anything and will be handed over to central bankers who will move towards a digital structure? Just look at what the Atlanta Federal Reserve said last week. They believe we're already in a recession. Gold mining stocks have outperformed physical gold by double digits in the past 2 gold bull markets. So investing in a company like Nev Gold,
you would be up 36% year to date.
While people investing in other stocks have been getting crushed. They have an advanced gold project right now in Nevada called the Limousine Butte, which is a 10,000 meter gold mining project. The company is in the midst of a 10,000 meter program, which could yield over 1 million ounces of oxide gold. So our thanks to Nev Gold for sponsoring this video and supporting what we do on this channel. You can actually invest directly in this company as well, just on the stock exchange. All you need to do is look up their stock ticker when you do a search on the internet for them. Their stock ticker is NAUFF. All you need to do is look them up on TD Ameritrade or any of the other big brokerages. You need to use one of the big boys, not one of those smaller like Robinhood style places. You need to use one of the big boys in order to trade this stock. And just look at their stock chart year to date. You can see how nicely it's up. So as they produce more gold, their stock continues to rise. Anyway, protect your family's wealth away from these globalist billionaires. Get educated. I'll have a link below to their gold report. You should all read it right now. Go to their website, check it out. The scheme right now that we're seeing is all part of a plan to wage war on the poor and middle class. So take care of yourself, protect your family's wealth, invest smartly, and continue to educate yourself. We'll see you next time, everyone.